Welcome to Southern Illinois History, and we're going to review for a Franklin County quiz tomorrow. So first off, one of the things that I always ask you is how do you find the counties that we're talking about? So we start here and we come up, 1, 2. So what county is this? Williamson. What's north of Williamson? Franklin. What's south of Williamson? Johnson. What river is on the western side? Mississippi. What is coming up the eastern side? Ohio, which eventually turns into the Wabash. Very good. Now, today I want to show you if we are looking for Springfield, Illinois. Who knows where Sangamon County is? And everybody's looking and saying, I have no idea. Sangamon County. Okay, so Dalton says middle left. Now, I'm going to teach you how to find it, because remember Abraham Lincoln did what? He wore a hat. So this is Sangamon County. Okay? So right here, Sangamon County. This is where Springfield is located, and this is where our Illinois government operates from. Now, in reality, we have a whole lot going on up here. Okay, so the other county I want to show you is this county right here, and it's called Cook County. That's where the majority of Chicago is located. Okay? All right, so with that being said, there's 2 more pieces of information to throw out there. That won't be on your quiz tomorrow. Just to kind of get you to know what's going on around you. Okay, so next, if I ask you, how many counties have we done now? 2. So we studied Williamson, county seat was Marion, established when? And now we've done Franklin. Benton is our county seat, established when? 1818. When was the state of Illinois established?
1818.
Same thing. Okay. When we talked about Franklin County, who was the county named after?
Benjamin Franklin.
Benjamin Franklin. You need to know that. Okay? I will not ask you townships, and you can hear about 11 years of students behind you clapping their hands for you. And we flip through lots of towns and places. Delton, I think you asked me how could I know which place to do. Here's a whole page full of places. Okay? Lots of different places, all with different stories. We talked about the very first article was the New Orient coal mine disaster of 1951. Where was this mine located? Was Frankfort, Illinois. How many people died in this explosion? Connor? 199. Who was the sole survivor? Cecil Sanders. Very good. How long was he trapped? 60 hours. And why didn't he die? Michaela, why?
Because he was already exposed to the air in the coal mines, and because he's been there since like forever, so he was used to it.
His lungs had adapted to the environment. Okay, so then we found out that they changed the ventilation systems because of a law. What was the name of that law? Krista. Very good. And what president enacted that? What year? All right, so Truman in 1952. And then we flipped it over, and it's not in this paper, but I have told you many times, what kind of animal did they take with them down in the mines? Connor, what was it?
I forget the exact kind, but it was a bird. I don't know.
Yes, a yellow canary. And the canaries would go with them. Why? Why was the canary? Leah?
Because of carbon monoxide that killed them first.
Okay, and it wasn't just carbon monoxide. This number 1 gas was methane gas, okay? And that's what caused the explosions almost every time. Okay, so we went to this article next, and we talked about lots of things in this article. I'm not going to expect you to know everything in here, okay, because there's a lot. But I am going to ask you things like, what kind of waterways are in Franklin County? So what was the big one we talked about? The Big Muddy, since that's a big one. Okay, who were the brothers who built on the west side or east side of West Frankfort? They built a fort. Michaela.
It was
The Jordans. That's right. Frank Jordan and his brothers. And then we flipped the page over. We started to learn about the courthouse, and I had several people put information about the courthouse, which was really good. We're going to flip the page over. I'm not going to bother testing you from there, but what was the place where people went? They didn't have anywhere to go. They could be blind, they could be children. What was the name of it?
Poor Farms.
The Poor Farms. And there was more than one in our region, wasn't there? Okay, flip the page over. Things that you should know from here. Number one, Illinois became what state originally? Virginia. And it took how many white males to take this area to become the Northwest Territory? 5,000 white males. Okay? So there were three things that our region is known for industry. What are they? Farming.
Railroads, and coal mines.
Very good. So you need to know all three. Okay? Then we flipped on over. And if you haven't already, this is the beginning of Wren Lake. And if you haven't read it, you need to. Wren Lake was enacted because of a flood control act. In what year? 1962. Okay, and what was the purpose of creating Wren Lake, other than just flood control? Yes.
Wasn't it so like other communities could have a clean water?
Very good. So we needed clean water, didn't we? Anybody go out to your ditch lately and kind of sift through the water? It's what we call brackish water. Nobody wants to drink that. So when we pull out our water, we want it to be crystal clear and good for us. Having clean, good water is a really important thing, okay? And that's what the number one thing was here. But then they were going to do fishing as well, so that you can do more of a recreational type of thing and also help the wildlife with conservation control, okay? So then we talked about Charlie Berger. He was known as the last public hanging in Illinois. What U.S. Cavalry was he a part of? The 13th U.S. Cavalry, and he loved horses, didn't he? And as we went through and started talking about him, he did some nice things for people, but he also was the author of doing many evil things, right? So he had some people that he was in cahoots with, and he eventually he got in trouble for what actual crime? Yes.
He killed the mayor of West City. His name was Joe Adams.
Okay, so now did Charlie actually kill him? No, he had someone else doing it for him. Now, he would have gotten away with it, but what happened? Harry and Elmo. Oh, Elmo. I know, wasn't it? It was so good. Okay, so Harry and Elmo, they were brothers. Okay, they were not on Sesame Street, just so you know. They ended up having problems with Charlie, and that was the beginning of Charlie's downfall. Now, he had been arrested before, hadn't he? Did they catch him? No, and he had what we call slippery hands. He could, no matter what he did, he could get away with it. But he said many men he had killed, but never a good one. Remember him saying that? Okay. So, as we went on, the articles kept talking about a man named Lori Price. Who was Lori Price? Anybody know? Lori Price. It's on this page right here, and it's underlined right here. He was a state policeman. And Route 13 is named after who? Lori Price. Okay, so Route 13, you go here and you go out to Harrisburg, you look on the right-hand side of the road, there's a sign that says the Lori Price Highway. Okay, so now you know who Lori Price is. He was a state policeman that had 1 foot over here with the Sheltons and 1 foot over here with the Bergers, and he got caught in the middle of the war. Okay, and things did not go well for him or his wife. Okay, so they didn't just attack Lori, but they got his wife too. All right, so, and you can see here his body was found in a field by a farmer, and Mrs. Price's body was later found in an old mine shaft near Johnson City. So if you've not read through this article, it's kind of important that you understand. When did Charlie actually get hung? Yes.
It was, I know it was like, it was in April, and I can't remember if it was the 1st or the 10th or the 18th.
Okay, so look on this page, and I've circled it. Originally, he was to be hung on April 13th. And they had the whole Friday 13th going on, and all the superstitions, and all the people were just that kind of thing. And so they actually moved it to April 19th. And his famous last words were what? It's a beautiful world. But you also know that he was on morphine. And he had been given his own gun to protect himself because there were mobs outside that wanted to take him. Okay. My grandmother, you see that crowd right there? My grandmother was in that crowd. They were so many people there, you wouldn't believe it. Thousands and thousands of people came to see this. So the last public hanging in the state of Illinois. And then we talked about the murder of Joe Adams. And Harry and Elmo Thomason are actually the ones who did the shooting. And this lady right here, her name is Jenny Creamer, she was the one who actually saw it happen. And they had to get her out of town because of what had happened. You have to understand that if you are a part of or you see something you shouldn't at that time during those gang wars, you were the next one on the list. Okay, so they got her out of town and got her to a safe place. All right, so moving on. We're down to the last few things here. On the videos that you didn't get a chance to see, I talk a lot about these ladies, or this lady and gentleman. This is August and Netta Cavalli. I actually used to go in this little store when I was a little girl, when I was 5 years old. They had old wooden floors, a screen door that would bang. You could get candy. You'd reach in the jars and pull the candy out for a penny. It was a really cool place. And so it talks about Cavalli's Grocery. And this is what it was like all over our region, is that it wasn't just all regular white people. We had lots and lots of different people from different places, and you learned how to understand and get along and appreciate the diversity in somebody else. And these people were very heavily Italian. Their language was mostly Italian. They spoke very little English. So as a little girl, I was trying my best to just get my candy, and all I could do was point and kind of grunt. You know how you, Well, and they would be trying to talk to me, but they would be saying it in an Italian way. And I don't know if you guys have talked to anybody that's a really excited Italian. They seem like they're mad and they're coming at you. Okay, so a 5-year-old, this is, okay, and I'm just like, okay. So they were like that, and with little kids, if you were a little kid when I grew up, adults would correct you, not your parents, other adults. So if they thought you were doing something wrong, they'd thump you right on the head. Get on out of here, and you'd be like, what just happened? Okay, I'm gonna tell my mom. Like, they don't care. So you got to understand things were a little different. You didn't act up like that. Young punks that decided to kind of act like that, some of the gentlemen will grab hold of them and say, listen here, you won't be acting like that. Okay, so they didn't let things happen all the time like we're seeing more and more frequently. So anyway, what's important about the Cavallis is they were one of the first businesses to have a telephone in this region. And that was a big deal. But 1979, just to give you perspective there, I would have been 9 years old at the time, and they had a robbery at their store, and it was shortly after that they closed the store. So a lot of the neighborhoods and all the towns had lots of little grocery stores, and that's the part we're missing out on as a country now. Okay, so the white pie. Unfortunately, I don't think I'll be able to bring you white pie. We'll see if that happens at some point, but Woodington is a railroad town, and what you guys need to know about railroad towns is they would always bring animals, lots and lots and lots of animals to be shipped, because the railroads hauled the livestock back and forth, so that was really important. The other thing was that the cafe, which is called Burton's Cafe, even to this day, used to be called the Sugar Bowl, okay? And the cafe first opened in 1945. What was happening in 1945? What happened in 1945? It was the end of World War II. Okay? So this was going to be big, booming business time. It's called post-war. When everybody started coming home and everybody wanted to make money, and it was a cool thing. Okay, this is the last article, the Silkwood Inn. Very cool story. If you haven't had a chance to read this yet, you guys need to. It's about a young girl named Priscilla. And what you're going to find out is that Priscilla was purchased by the man who ran the Silkwood Inn. He actually owned it. And he purchased her for $1,000 in gold to set her free. Okay? You need to know that. Her name was Priscilla, and he bought her for $1,000 in gold. Now, she was a slave that the Indians had actually took unto themselves. And when the slaves, remember, Illinois was always neutral during the Civil War and any of those things. Illinois was always neutral. Now, there were slaves here, and there were people who owned them, but it wasn't Illinois saying that it was a slave state. Okay, so you need to know the difference. So anyway, this guy was traveling around, and the Cherokee, who knows why the Cherokee would have been coming through here? Anybody know? Trail of Tears, very good. And so the Great Cherokee Removal was occurring, and the Cherokees had Priscilla with them. And, excuse me. And Mr. Silkwood purchased her and gave her her freedom, and she became one of their family members. Now, the thing that's really cool here is she brought with her a flower, and it's called a hollyhock. Anybody ever seen hollyhocks? They're very pretty. So next to the Silkwood Inn, which is here, this is a rebuilt, refurbished Silkwood Inn. This is in Mulkeytown, by the way. And right outside here is where, not too far from here, is where Priscilla is buried. And she brought what they known as hollyhocks, and they called them Priscilla's hollyhocks. Okay? So, when you see hollyhocks in our region, it's because it came through this young lady right here. Okay? So, that would be some very good facts for me to ask you. What flower was Priscilla known for? How much was she purchased for? $1,000. Okay? All right, so any questions on our information from Franklin County? Is there a possibility that there's more information than what I've given you? Absolutely. Okay, and each county we do, I'm just barely scratching the surface. Okay, but we don't have enough time to just go on and on and on about things. So that brings us to the end of our recording for today.